Detroit, Detroit, Detroit is different. Detroit is different. Detroit is different. Detroit is different.
Welcome back to another Detroit is Different podcast. And we're inside the studios as per usual on one of the hottest days that we've been in the studio all year. And we've been covering here at Detroit is Different a lot of the people that add to the stories from a journalism lens, right? So a great friend Khan reached out and said, hey, I think you need to get Alex in the studio. I said, say less. Upon your recommendation, the doors will be open. So Alex Washington is a journalist, a writer, but also a person interested in content creation too. In so many ways that these stories come together. How are you doing, Alex?
I'm doing great. How are you?
All is well. All is well. And you wearing the Cube shirt.
Oh, Boys in the Hood is one of my favorite movies.
Yes.
Like top 5 favorite movies for me.
It's definitely one of those types of summer days where we don't want to see conflict like that, but more so like all the parts but the end of the film.
Yeah. Like the hanging out on Crenshaw, all of that, like the things that make it black, the barbecue when Doughboy came home, stuff like that. They're good parts to the movie.
Yes.
Some good work.
A fresh out barbecue. It's a lot of those celebrations and days off celebrations amongst other things. It's just family reunions, summertime, people hanging out. Actually, my neighbors were celebrating the 105th birthday of elder that used to be on the block that passed away, Mama Craft, but the family still celebrates.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love stuff like that.
Yeah, you put in enough time and energy, they'll celebrate your birthday after.
That is the plan, actually.
I know.
I always tell people I work for my obituary.
Okay.
It sounds morbid, but it's like I'm working to leave something. What that looks like, I don't know.
All right, you're going to have one of those obituaries where people be like, man.
Yeah. Like, I want the line to be really long when people go to get 2-minute remarks.
Okay,
like, I want one of those. I want them to have to cut people off.
Where the pastor and them got to shut it down.
Yes.
They're going to say, you just
like,
have to talk to the family.
Like, it's okay. Yeah. Like, we could wait till the repast. Like, yeah, I want one of those.
Okay. So with that, we start these always kind of from that lens of family and friends. Your roots to Detroit. How many generations deep are you to the city and soil?
So technically, I am 2nd generation by my mom, 1st generation by my dad.
Okay.
I have boomer parents. My parents were older when they had me. So they were 34 when they had me. My mom was the first of her siblings to be born up north. The rest were born down in Macomb, Mississippi.
Macomb, Mississippi. Where is that at?
I don't know.
Oh, man.
I haven't been down there. Largely, I just feel like it was like for my family, and it's like my grandmother was born in 1925. She had my mom when she was 30. My mom was number 5 of 8. So it was like growing up, I definitely got a lot of like real life history when it pertains to like our culture, how my family ended up north. It was part of the Great Migration. My granddad came here for work, like most people, I feel like. And then from my dad's side, like I talk to them, but I don't. But they're still very tied to Alabama. Like all of them were born down here before they all migrated up here for work. And my parents actually met at Jefferson. So at JNAP. They were Chrysler people.
All right. So we definitely want to get to that story. Certainly. We got to talk about that, right? Before we go there, Mississippi, Alabama, as it's always uplifted. So many more people I'm meeting from Mississippi. It's been a wave of Black folks from Mississippi because was so used to Georgia and Alabama being the story. What neighborhood did they move into when they settled this way?
So my grandmother, originally her and my grandfather, they used to have like a shop/apartment off of Grand River and like Buchanan, so real west side. And then they moved over to like the Puritan and Wyoming area. So that was the area for them like my whole life. And then my mom, I grew up on Finkel. Very Finkel, very Greenfield. Like,
okay.
That is my claim.
All right, so West Side throughout. These are the stomping grounds.
Very West Side. Like, I feel like I did everything on the West Side. I went to high school on the West Side. I graduated from Wayne State. Like, I graduated from Renaissance High School. Like, I started my family on the West Side. Like, very West Side through and through.
Okay. All right. And in that same framework, you talk about these staple neighborhoods. You remember you said the neighborhood, well, you said Greenfield, Finkel for you,
Mhm.
but Puritan, Wyoming
Mhm.
was that neighborhood for your grandparents.
Mhm.
Okay. And that those aren't that far away either.
Nope. And we're still, like, tied to the block because, like, one of my aunts, God rest her soul, had bought a house down the street from my grandparents, so it's, like, that block for my family is home.
Mm.
Like, when we start talking, like, the streets, like, Ohio, Indiana, Wisconsin, like, it's very real over there. We still see people from the neighborhood, like, all the time. My uncle still stays in the neighborhood. It's, like, stuff like that, I think, is why I love Detroit because, like, that's the part I've seen of it. It's, like, very much, like, family. It's rooted, it's deep, it is, like, cultural. It is, like, I come from an era and a people who taught me how to be a village, like, how to be a neighbor, how to be a friend. So, those roots just kinda, like, travel with me. Like, even growing up where I grew up off of Finkel, like, a lot of my people, like, a lot of my friends, our families are still on that block. Like, I
Mhm.
like to say it was generational because some people grew up on that block, and then as their grandparents either moved away or passed away, they took over the house, so a lot of my friends still have homes on that block, and, like, our kids know each other, like, we've known each other our whole lives. It's, like it's a different level of, like, family. Like, you really learn what family means and know that it goes, like, past blood.
Wow. Okay. And you've went right into a lot of the questions that I would go into about like what was that community like coming up? Are you still connected? You answered that. And then you mentioned that other community that's still a stone's throw. It's close. The culture is very similar. We've heard a lot uplifted, but Finkel Greenfield.
Yeah, I love it.
Mm,
I don't think and it's so weird because I used to see a lot of discourse is like, I grew up with things and not realizing that some of the things I saw weren't normal, right?
mm.
Like, I used to watch the gas station all the time, and there was, like, a prostitute regularly who's always asks us, like, "Hey, what's your grades in school looking like?" Super chill person. It wasn't until I was an adult that I understood what she did for work,
It's
but
like,
it's
why is
like
she at the bus stop all the
like, I
time?
used to just see her,
I
and
know the Finkel has come. Why didn't she
it's
get on?
like it wasn't actually, I didn't even realize, like, the neighborhood that I grew up in until I got to high school, and I started meeting kids from, like, other neighborhoods, and they were
Mm,
like, "You stay over there?" I'm like, "Is it supposed to be bad?" I don't know, like,
mm.
street life was not necessarily my version of Detroit, so that's not a part of Detroit that I actually claim. I understand that it exists, but for me, it was never that. It was block parties, it was my best friend's granddad can yell at me the same way my mom yelled at me and then go tell my mom that he yelled at me and why, and then she's yelling at me for the same thing. Like, I grew up like that. I grew up very centered, very balanced, like, the village was strong.
And it's interesting you uplift that, it just being my neighborhood. Similar in a lot of the stories of street life is happening
Mhm.
throughout. And as I've uplifted oftentimes, it's tragic for anyone to fall victim to a violent act or just a criminal act of somebody damaging your property or stealing things. Like nobody wants to go through that. It still layers into a lot of like what we could label as quote unquote crime
Mhm.
that does exist and functions in communities like this. Um, and similar to what you say, I'm a big, the streets are hiring. They're always hiring.
Always.
And if you choose to walk a path, then you're going to open up the doors to opportunities to gain probably the attention and wealth you seek, but also you're opening up yourself to the vulnerability of not just you, but possibly your family members and friends to dangers that they may not necessarily want. And that's what makes it so difficult. But if you choose to just stay straight laced and just walk a path, not dipping your toe into those spaces, I'm not going to say it's 100% safe, but it definitely you're avoiding a lot of what people would look at as like, stuff that they've seen from films,
Yep.
like a Menace to Society or a Baby Boy or something like that.
And I feel like a lot of that still exists. I just feel like as the years have gone by, I feel like street code has I don't think that was one thing that was passed along in the way that it should have. And what I mean to say, there used to be a time where it was like women and children were the innocents, the elderly were the innocents. Like, you don't mess with these people. And now I feel like no one is teaching this generation of kids that same degree of code. Like, it just seems like senseless violence is more senseless than what it was before. Like, before, I felt like if you heard of an old lady being murdered, you knew that likelihood of her having been related to a crime in some way. She could have been the mother of someone and them trying to get back. Now I feel like you could hear an old lady and it could have just been just because, like a random stray. Like the whole Kia Boys era, and they're like, just stealing people cars for fun. And it's like, who is teaching these kids? Like, where are they learning this stuff from? Like, do they really think it's GTA? Like, did nobody beat them up enough? Like, where is it coming from?
It's interesting when you uplifted that. The first thing I immediately thought of was the Kia Boys. So, like, for people that are unaware, and I think that a lot of it really deals with these. The Kia Boys is a movement that I actually heard more so about in Chicago and Milwaukee first. And the concept of like the trigger of stealing a Kia, similar to like I think when we were younger, like stealing Chrysler cars when I was in high school. You can like go joyriding, but now you have the added advantage of joyriding with this stolen vehicle and putting it online for views and likes. So much has shifted because social media has entered the realm of, I don't know, I guess street life or like senseless acts of crime or violence, or I'm going to call it attention. That's kind of how I look at it.
It blurs the lines of reality and like not reality. Like, I think that with social media, what we've come to is a lot of people do a lot of things for the sake of stardom because everybody is a star online. It is one viral moment can land you any type of deal, right? We saw it with the little boy who had said, "I love corn." And next thing you know, he has like a brand deal with Green Valley or Green Giant or whatever. And it's like we see it with so many people and people just like want that. And my thing is like, what do you want it for? Like, you go viral, what's your next step? Like, what is your actual plan? Like, y'all out here stealing kids, bro. Like, it's lame. Like, it's a lame, like, it's like you're still in the hamster car. You couldn't pick nothing better. Anything more challenging, anything more of value. Not to diss Kia owners. I respect the Kia. But I'm just saying, like, as a cars, it's like, that's the car y'all chose to go after?
But I think that's part of the zigging and zagging. It's that in that culture that it is a Kia. Now, I can't, Lord knows, I cannot speak on behalf of the Kia Boy Society and why, but I do know that part of it is it's a lot of Instagram live going on as these joyrides are taking place. I think if you take away going live and TikTok, you're probably deterring some of that criminal action per se.
A little bit.
And we're here more so as we're talking about community and growing up and everything. And you're saying like most of your life West Side. Let's get back to your story. You said school West Side. Where you go for high school?
Renaissance.
Okay.
Very Renaissance, very Mighty Phoenix.
All right. What era, iteration, not asking direct class or what?
I have no problem.
Okay.
I am one of those people. I don't care about I love saying whatever age I am. Okay. I graduated high school in 2007. So I was at Renaissance from 2003 to 2007.
Okay. So you were at the new Renaissance, as people may call it.
Yep. I started at the old building until my freshman and sophomore years were at the old building. My junior and senior years were at the new building.
So the second class to graduate from the new building.
Yeah, which sounds crazy now, actually. Because we're in 2025 and I'm closer to my 20-year reunion than I am not.
Yes. Yeah. I was seeing stuff from people from the 05 class put up their 20-year the other day.
Threw me off, actually. Threw me off.
Yeah, you like, I know them.
Like, dang, I guess we are there.
Yes.
We're there. We're the people.
So your Renaissance experience, what was it like? Is that what started you on this path towards writing?
So, that's actually a better question because yes and no. For me, Renaissance was my first public school. I was in private schools my entire life, pre-K through 8th grade. So it was my first public school, and it actually was the only way that I could go to a public school was if I had got into Renaissance. I actually wanted to go to Cass at first, and my mom was like, no. She was like, you're not going there.
Oh, man, like, it's a bunch of people that will see your mom from watching this. Like, what you talking about?
It's a bunch of people who are going to see this and be like, you wanted to go to Cass? Yes, I did. I will always talk about Cass to this day. I stand 10 toes, whatever. But I went to Renaissance, and it was my first real experience at a public school, but it was still very different because it was, I think, going to school in Detroit, especially back then, there were a lot of people who were like just like you, right? So it's the people who were taught like we can code switch, we know what to do, but we're still all very smart. Renaissance was that for me. It was the typical hood kids. We had the kids in there who was out snatching people's buffs and then turning around and going to AP chemistry. And it's like, why? Like, why are you out here doing this? But it was cool because it exposed me to a different degree of Detroit. Like, I grew up with a lot of like union workers, a lot of factory workers. I didn't really grow up knowing people who went to college. Like, I'm a first generation college graduate in my family. So I kind of had to set the tone for college graduates in my family. No one had went straight from high school to college. So there it was kind of like I'm exposed to Black people who went to college, Black people who were in fraternities and sororities, Black people who were actually like the doctors, the lawyers, like all of those things by way of their children who are like teaching me and stuff. So Renaissance was great. I don't have my personal experience. It was really good. I still cherish a lot of stuff that I actually learned in high school. And now that I'm older and I'm like now a parent, it's like I'm glad and I understand why my mom like made the choice to send me there as opposed to like one of the suburban schools that she could have sent me to. I appreciate that part of it.
Okay. All right. And then you talked about that Union family. And that goes right back to the JNAP story. So your parents meet there. Break that down.
So my granddad moved up here. One of the things, job opportunity, he actually started at Chrysler. I also know my grandparents had owned like a record store and like a restaurant, like a bunch of stuff. I feel like once upon a time, a lot of Black families did here in the city. My granddad worked at Jefferson, and he actually did not want my mom to work there. So my dad had came up. He got a job at the plant. My granddad was my dad's boss. And my mom ended up getting in the plant on her own accord. Granddad was pissed, but he told her the only way you can go is if you get in on your own, and she got in on her own.
Ain't that something?
And that's how my parents met. My mom was 19, so my dad had to probably be around 19 or 22 when he started there. And then they were on and off for years, and then they had me at 34.
Well, I'm going to say this. All right, Dad, that is a heck of a gymnastic thing because you meet her, you like, oh, who that? And then it's like, that's your boss daughter. It's like, oh, man. Oh, that's probably part of the alluring thing. So between the charm and everything else.
And the story went as crazy as it hurts, but it's good.
I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Right. So then Alex. So part of the background is like, Thanksgiving had to have been like, oh, you over here? It's like, you should have worked that last shift the right way. I'm just messing.
Probably, actually. Up until they couldn't.
All right. So they meet there, and that's one of those spaces that right now, even in the mayoral election, that people are talking about, like these expansions of Chrysler and bringing jobs back and the success of what the Duggan administration means. But what has been like that lens, I guess, if you could give some insider family information to that relationship between Chrysler and Detroit, because for years it was looking like who would know what would happen with Chrysler, because so many of those transitions from Chrysler to Daimler Chrysler to
Fiat.
Yeah.
I don't know, Stellantis now.
Yeah.
I think so. Sorry. I know better than that. But
no, it's cool. It's cool.
What's funny is like my mom is a like Chrysler loyalist, right? And when I say that, I mean every car I have owned has been a make of a Chrysler vehicle. Could not own anything else. It was like if she helped me get it, we're not pulling anything in the driveway. But for that in a relation with like Chrysler and the city, I think it was like it helped start the boom, right? Like you have Ford. But when you compare the big three, I think the reason we know so many people who work for Chrysler is just not necessarily that it was easier to get into, but I think the type of people that Chrysler was hiring were people like of the neighborhood. So it was easier for them to like recruit other people of the neighborhoods, right? A lot of people, when you see families, you see like generational people in these plants. You know, people who can say, oh, my granddad worked here, my uncle worked here, this is why I work here, or my cousin is here. Like, families are loyal to one company. Like, as loyal as they are to their neighborhoods, they are loyal to one area of the big three. The way that Chrysler like continues to integrate itself, it's reinvented itself plenty of times. It has always been saved. So that means there's something there about Chrysler that like Detroit just like cares about. I also feel like Detroit has a thing with like losing anything else, right? We've lost so much. It's like, can you imagine if one of the big three just left? Like Motown left, one of the big three leaves. Where does that leave Detroit, right? Where does that leave the people who have given their lives, the families that moved up here for the promise of like wealth and generational stability? Like, where does that leave these people? So I think that's what helps like the brand loyalty when it comes to things a lot of times. And it's weird because even across, like there are certain things, like if you look at like Cadillac, right? That's GM. Cadillac was like the car. Like if you made it, you had money, Cadillac was the car. Like we all know an old black man who wanted a Cadillac and got it. Like that was his gift to himself, or got his Corvette. And it's like Chrysler was like the family car. Like you got it. Like that's the car for your family. That's the car you take your kids up until like the Dodge Charger and 3 whatever era of Chrysler. But I really think a lot of that just has to do with the people. I really think it was a company built on the people, and that is what helped move the needle forward. Like my mom retired from Chrysler and she had a total of 43 years.
Mm.
And it's like, me now as an adult, I couldn't imagine being that degree of loyal to a company ever.
Mm.
But I feel like that also speaks to the type of people and the type of company that they are, because I also know other people across in different plants who retired with just as many years. And I think it has a lot to do with like the union is something about being like of the people and for the people. And they feel like they have a voice. And I think that's what kind of keeps them going. And the day they screw those people over is the day all of those companies go under.
I would argue, and I'm sure others would say, some of those people feel as though they have not gotten a fair deal already.
And they haven't.
You know.
It's not that was also one of the things that was really hard when I decided to pursue different careers, because my mom intentionally blocked a job for me at Chrysler. Like when I graduated college, I had an offer on the table from them. They were like, you know, if she wants a job, like just say it. My mom told me no. And she told me no. She was like, your granddad told me no. She's like, but I'm telling you no in a different way because I understand now why he wants to. She was like, you don't need to be there. She was like, it's not a place for you. She's like, what it does for the body, what it does to the people. She said, you don't need to be there.
That's interesting.
She was like, it's not a place for you. And I hated it then because it's like, duh, but I need a job. I just graduated. I'm working retail. But I appreciate it now because I wouldn't have wanted to be there. I wouldn't want to stay there. Like there's nothing wrong with working in a plant. There's nothing wrong. There would never be anything wrong with putting food on your table or supporting your family. But I just know that wasn't a life for me.
Okay. All right. So from this lens, the life for you, writing, how did that connection start?
I've always been a writer. I've been reading since I was like 2.
Wow.
So my mom was one. She's very into English, very into books. So I definitely get that from her. I've always read. And when I was in like 4th grade, once upon a time, magazines were a thing and subscriptions were a thing. And they were a great thing. I had subscriptions to everything. Herb, XSL, Rolling Stone, Vibe, you name it. Dub was coming to my house. I didn't like basketball, I didn't like cars, but it was coming to my house. I had it. I was obsessed with magazines and what that was. And I was like, I want to do this. I didn't know what I wanted to write about. I just know like I could do something like this. And my mom used to put me in writing camps, like all types of stuff. And when I was in 9th grade, I got to Renaissance, we were able to choose one elective. I chose newspaper, which they also don't exist now, but it's fine. The thing about it is DPS had a partnership with the Detroit Free Press. And the Detroit Free Press used to print special edition copies of the high school newspaper. So each high school had like a 1-page newspaper across the city. And I thought that was pretty cool. And so I took intro to journalism 9th grade and then newspaper the last 3 years of high school. And that kind of built my connections with like the Detroit Free Press. And at the time, it exposed me to like Kelly Carter and Jamel Hill, who are much bigger names now, but that's where they were in the era of me being in high school. And I became an apprentice at the Detroit Free Press. And that really kind of level set me like, all right, I could do this. My first story there, I was able to interview Anita Baker. It did not go that great.
Wow.
But I held on to like a lot of bitterness for years. But that was my first story. And it's like to be 18 and that's something that I was doing was great. To have learned from Kelly, and this was right off of the Free Press's like Emmy win for their Aretha Franklin piece that they did called Respect. And it was a lot. And it helped set the standard and really expose me to more. But if I had to pinpoint a point of like, this is what I want to do, like this is the people I want to talk about, it was probably 2006. Not probably. It was 2006. It was when Jay Dilla died. And Kelly Carter had wrote this piece about Jay Dilla's death for the Detroit Free Press. It was a full-on like front page feature after he died. And I remember reading it and like, yo, this is like the best thing I've ever read. Like I was slightly familiar with Dilla, but not too much into it. Like I knew Donuts had just came out, but I wasn't like really like into it. But I remember reading her story and it was like, I want to write like this. Like, I want to do this. I know that I could do something like this. Like, she's writing about this artist and it's not just about their music. It's about like their legacy and their life. Like, I want to do something like that. And that's what started it. And then a few months later, she turned around and wrote a story about Proof in the Free Press. And then I started paying attention to like her writing. And that year in my life, I was like, yeah, journalism is going to be something that I'm going to pursue. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but that's where it started at.
Well, you uplift many legends in a lot of the work of telling that story of Detroit. So Jemele Hill, more known, I guess I would say, from her work with ESPN, but currently deep into content creation with her own shows and many other works that she still executes, but a Detroiter. You know, you see her prominently in the Bye Barry documentary that most Detroiters have watched about Barry Sanders and so many other things. Just a writer from Detroit knowing that lens, and also Kelly Carter. They're close friends, obviously work together, but more so from a lens of entertainment has been a key voice now, I'd say, on a national scope for years, but starts there with some of those stories where you end up saying, okay, this is the lens in which I want to move. And you also uplift the magazines. And that I could see from different stories how an interview with Ms. Baker could be kind of tough from some of the people that I know that have worked with her, and also, you know, depending upon the temperament of what's happening with touring, what's happening, you know, it could be journalism. Journalism is an interesting, and I guess that doesn't say much, but journalism is a space where, especially like Black artists, Black business people, Black people in general, let's just say that, we can struggle with. Because I often talk about how most institutions are not designed for us. The lens of media itself, always like we're having our guard up so much because the portrayal of Black imagery in media so often is not things that we want to see. Now, from it doesn't usually fall on the person writing it, but the person that's the writer definitely is going to deal with the brunt force of what happens. So like just by working at like, you know, if you happen to be like the Black correspondent on Fox News, and it's like, why are they doing all this racist stuff? And it's like, well, you know, and I'm not defending any Black correspondent on Fox News. I'm just telling you sometimes it can be a tough space.
It's hard, especially when you look at the media landscape in Detroit. Like growing up, I was definitely an Ebony Jet Essence kid. Like I loved Ebony. I thought I was going to work for them, right? As time went on, for years, it was coming into the industry. Once upon a time, I was a member of NABJ. I need to renew that membership, but I was in NABJ.
Wait, let's frame that. So that's the National Association of Black Journalists that sadly, I think most people now kind of tie as that wild Donald Trump, I guess, what was that, political forum that he had last year? But that organization has been around for decades. And that connection of bringing together all of these Black journalists, is very key.
Yeah. And there it's like being amongst those people and amongst other people, you always hear whispers, right? And one thing that is consistent, especially in Black culture, if we don't like something that's Black culture, we don't like it amongst ourselves. We don't make it known. But in the case of Ebony, right, it became a thing where it's like, you're not paying your people. And it's like your legacy is built on the people. You have these writers, you're not paying them. And it's like, what are they supposed to do? Because this is their livelihood. And the same thing happened in Detroit. On a smaller scale, we saw that with Black Detroit. And I remember I broke that story. And I remember when I was working on that story, I was an editor at Metro Times. This is like 2 years ago. I'm working on a story and I knew that I had a race against the clock because I found out that another larger paper was trying to break the story as well.
Mm.
And for me, and this is like a national paper, it wasn't another local one. For me, my biggest point was, at first, I feel like if anybody's going to come and say anything about anything in this city, it needs to be somebody of this city.
Yeah.
I don't care. I am one of those Detroiters through and through. I don't care how much we talk about each other. My husband is from the east side of Detroit. We go back and forth all day. However, if you're from Southfield, you can't say anything about Detroit. Like, I'm that type. So breaking that story was both hard and it was a little bit sad because it's like once upon a time, Black Detroit was like, it was nice. So it was like this young, hot, like up and coming, like culture thing for like younger millennial Detroiters. And again, you're not paying your people, you're spinning people, you're stealing content. And it's like, why is that the thing? Like now you're setting the standard and now you're setting the culture back because you have Black people have to speak out against it because it's just wrong. Like I got a little bit of flack. It wasn't the first time. I think just because my track record that year wasn't the greatest because I was talking about like other Black things and bringing like letting company into the house because of the outlet that I was doing it for. But it's one of those things that shouldn't have to happen. And it's like, as a culture, I feel like we are losing a lot of like the recipes when it comes to how our stories are being told and where they're being shared. And it's like, I'm a person, and I think that for me, that's why my career is what it is and where I choose to be. Like, I chose to be a Detroit reporter. I wanted to be a Detroit culture reporter. I could have moved to Atlanta. I could have moved to Chicago. I could have moved and just done something there. But for me, I felt like there's so many holes in the stories that's not being told in the city that frustrates me. Like, our two local papers are more catering to suburban area than they are the people in the neighborhoods.
So I want to, we're going to get back to some of your story, right? But we got to put a pin in this one for a second, right? Or no, we're going to take the pin off the page and then we're going to put it back on and we're going to pick back up.
Go ahead.
So Ebony and many writers definitely were held up for months on payment from Ebony. One of them, someone that I know, writer from Detroit for years, Biba. Shout out to Biba Adams.
Love Biba.
Shout out to Biba.
Biba the diva.
Yep. So Biba's one of them amongst many others. And so people kind of get the flow of it. There are many, I guess, what would you say? Not even necessarily freelance writers, but if you don't get into in the world of journalism, it kind of works like this. You have in today's era of journalism. So let's say like 2010 forward, you have an institution, they may have like, I'm just using this as an example. They may have 5 writers that just work on staff. Of those 5 writers, probably 2 are just editing so many stories. And then they'll have like different specialists that'll specialize in different things. So we go to Alex, it's like, okay, you're a cultural writer for Detroit. The African World Festival's coming. So we, as this publication, think that we need to go to a Detroit writer because you're already familiar. You know some of the players already. We're not going to have to extend all of the cost and time and effort of what that would be. Hence, you're going to get paid per word. You negotiate whatever that would be. Let's say, hey, I want to get 1,000-word story. Let me get 3 pictures, and I'm just throwing a number out there, somewhere between $750 to $1,000. Let's work that out, right? Writer says, yes, let's do it. Then another piece happens, and it's like, you'll get paid as we get this advertising money in the door, right? So they're kicking the can, they're writing these stories, sending them in, it's going to submit. the way the internet has shifted the way that we consume a lot of forms of media has impacted journalism more than any other form of media, even more so than film and music. I'm a person in music, and I'm not saying that you're getting paid what you're supposed to get paid by Spotify either, but it can play with games because for years to get a full page ad in the free press, it would be like, that's $30,000, black and white, 50,000 with color. Now it's like, we can offer you the online banner based on the impressions and how many times you click it. So similar to the fight that a lot of the writers, directors, and actors and producers in LA were having with Netflix specifically, and a lot, they said streaming services, but it really was focused on Netflix, and then it was set a precedent and followed through. That hasn't happened with writers across America. Let's just put it like that in reference to journalism, because now it's like a game of like the clicks and the impressions and how do you audit it. And it's like, I got to trust your numbers of how much this should be worth. Whereas I knew, okay, this ad, full page, full color, brand new car, back of the newspaper, it's this much money it goes. In this game, like many things, the black person in business is dealing with more stress than most. So as you talk about the NABJ, there's also the national, it's a National Association of Black Newspapers, NNPA, that shout out to the Michigan Citizen where I used to work years ago. It's no longer here, but I found out about that organization from there. And these black newspapers would have like coalitions where sometimes it would be ad buys from different organizations. All of these dollars get low until it gets low even for Ebony. It's been many shifts for Ebony. I want to say now they're like 6 magazines a year, and they're making more money off of the Essence Festival from Johnson and Johnson publications than the magazines themselves. With it, they still need the magazines for collateral, but it becomes more of a dance of more like a fashion or a Vogue-like magazine, which is not to disrespect what should happen to any of the writers, but they're trying to quantify how much is an online story worth, even though they know they can get more reach with the online story. So I give all of that context to share. I remember when Billy Strouder first got Black. And I told Billy, I was like, this is going to be I don't know how this is going to fit into the fold and what's going to happen and how much you're going to go to print and what those relationships are, because some of those relationships don't exist. Black was actually a project that started, which you're very familiar with. I want to say it was like the African American Family Project, like another less cultural, less hip magazine, but more like a functional to the funders that really pay for what backs it. Then you got some creative minds to really work with it. Then you get new faces and people in spaces, and it just changes the feel. But a lot of it is still advertising. Hence, that's why I say the media dynamic really matters. And how does it come? Now, these aren't excuses not to pay people. These are more so you got to know what we're dealing with in the whole scope. I just wanted to lay that long diatribe of information so people can kind of know.
It's very necessary. And journalism is a career for the wealthy or the passionate. You cannot be both. It is like you can't be passionate and expect to survive. If you want to be a passionate journalist, you're going to have to be more than a journalist. You're going to have to be a videographer. You're going to have to be a photographer. You're going to have to understand SEO. You're going to have to understand social media. Like, you literally have to be a Jack and Jill of all trades in order to be of value.
And it's tough because now we're getting into so many rich stories that need to be told and not necessarily sold. Because now that you're getting into content creation, you're really taking off the veil of where the pen matters so much into the context of this idea of America, which I'm a firm believer, even if we go back to the criminality thing, I think America's always been, as I say, this is a criminal enterprise.
It is.
But within it, the freedom of press really matter to strengthen what I always say is people's critical thinking skills. If everything is paid off, then you don't even necessarily know what's in front of you, right?
I think that was intentional. I think the intent, it may sound crazy. I don't think everything is like a scheme or conspiracy. I'm not one of those people. But I do think like when you look at the media landscape at large, right? I don't think people search for the truth anymore. Once upon a time, that was the center. You wanted to know the truth. You wanted to know the facts. People are not looking for that. They're looking for support. They're looking for support for their opinions. They're looking for support on their belief instead of finding out what the truth is. And I feel like that also helps shape the way things within the industry have gone.
Even the framework of what we consider in maybe within like the running concurrent with Trump's presidency, one of the most respected news outlets I still consider more tabloid media and TMZ.
Yep.
TMZ is respected as like right now you cite TMZ or like does CMZ say it as the cited source for whatever the story that breaks is. It's like, oh, this person got sued or this happened. And because it functions in the space of content and tabloid, it's not held to the same journalistic standard. So,
And you know what's crazy is that TMZ hires actual journalists.
yeah.
Like the people who work for TMZ, who I've met from TMZ, like they all have journalism degrees. So it's like that gets to the point of like what you have to do to survive, because that's what it comes in. Like you're going to this tabloid because it's gonna pay your bills, and it's like you may not want to do the clickbait, but it's where you can find a job right now, so you're gonna take it.
And that clickbait, we're not unpacking, as I say. Like sometimes the deep dive and the unpacking helps contextualize how to look at things, because on the surface, yeah, you want that quick, like Yahoo news story headline, like, okay, that's cool. But if you're not really grabbing, hence even the way our broadcast news moves, like it moves so fast, it's like, wait. You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, so what's happening? Where does it happen? How did this happen? Who are the players involved? Years ago, I used to like one of the assignments is I'm 42, so I don't mind uplifting my age either. But yeah, one of the first assignments when you learn to read back in the day was always, look at this article, give us a who, what, when, where, how. Whereas now, I consider myself fairly intelligent, and it's very difficult to do it as even the news has become more editorialized, and even the lead journalists and writers, columnists for most papers are more personalities for their opinions on things more so than the story on something.
Yep.
Whereas I think of like Cassandra Spratling when I was a kid.
Loved her.
The stories that I've seen her follow Black families for years. Like, and I'm not even necessarily saying that the talent or the interest isn't there. Just it's right now in the business, they don't see the money being there.
And those were the names. I think that's why it's hard for me, because once upon a time, you knew the names in the paper because you actually read the paper, right? Like Cassandra Spratling was one of them. Michelle Riley was another. Like
That's
I used
Ray
to
Cooper.
really love the way that they told stories. Like they inspired me to tell stories. Now you don't. You half the time you don't even see bylines anymore, and I feel like some of it is just because some people just don't want to stand behind words.
And as words and AI and just, stuff that just takes, straight press release and runs, and time, it's tough because it's back to capacity as these newsrooms have gotten smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as well.
When I was at Metro Times, it was 4 of us. It was Lee DeVito, myself, Steve Niebling, and Randiah Green. We were the 4. And we were like machines pumping out most of it. We rely heavily on freelancers and photographers.
Yeah.
And I think because people know it as a name, and the reach of it, but the micro of like how that newspaper was pumping out was like crazy because it was literally just the 4 of us.
And that is actually like when we consider like I guess the alternative media newspaper space, 4 is probably looked at like, wow, is somebody
Somebody's like, oh, that's great.
No,
No, it's not.
exactly. The
When you're
the
4
alternative
people.
place in Atlanta is like, we got 2. What you mean you got 4?
But you're competing against
Yes.
the Detroit News. You're competing against the Detroit Free Press.
Yeah.
So it's like you're still in the lead with the big dogs and you have a fraction of what they have to operate with.
And that's where I do believe that when you do see that deep dive, even in broadcast journalism, it can be healthy because it's like, okay, this is that rich story. Hence, a lot of that content in these discussions. I know, right now, world knows. I've been doing this Detroit is Different for 10 years, but I've been playing, placing more reels, just recognizing it's nothing that I was pushing back for years. And I don't even necessarily think that people, I heard you, I listened. I still have a standard by having a marketing firm, and now I've got my rhythm together where my reels got to look a certain way, even though I know yours can look a certain way. But it's so interesting even in that because, I talk for an hour and a half with you. We're going to take a snippet and a person's going to drive down and go so deep. Some of these reels are getting like 10,000 views of like everybody. It's like, that's just 90 seconds of the context. But this is where I think a lot of people's attention spans are across the board is, like you say, I don't want to say it's conspiratory per se. I think it's all things are in place to just head in that direction without saying like, okay, let me go back and look at this whole clip. I'll spend the 90 minutes before taking this 90 seconds and basically writing a dissertation about something that if you just listen to the whole thing, you'd have got contextually.
I had a reel like last week, maybe the week before. I don't post reels as often. Not like I used to. Like, I'm a new mom. I have a 1-year-old. She's a lot. So I don't have the time anymore.
Shout out to the loop.
But I posted a reel. It started with a Facebook status that accidentally got pushed to Threads. And it was about how I found out that Let Me Bang was originally a Chicago record. In my entire life, I thought it was from Detroit. Posted that. It ended up on Threads, got traction on Threads, ended up on the Detroit Discussion like Instagram page. And I was getting tagged in the comments and I was like, oh my God, this is insane. Like everyone's commenting. It's like, yo, I hate when stuff like that happens because like I have an audience, right? Big, small, whatever. But it's like I usually direct my posts to those people. So when stuff gets plucked out, it's like now I'm in front of everybody. So now I'm like, crap, these people don't know me. They may think I'm like dumb. Like, how did you not know this? Like that type of vibe. Made a follow-up, made a reel to that, right? And it was going okay in the beginning. It eventually made its way to DJ Clint, DJ Sluggo, like who are 2 Chicago house DJs. Leaving comments in my messages, like it got bigger than what it was. The whole point of my reel was to say, hey, I found out Godzilla, Let Me Bang, Work It, whatever. It's called The Freaks. Like I found out all these songs were Chicago songs. My entire life I thought they were Detroit. So that was the point of the reel. It was talking about these very specific Detroit records. I ended up getting comments like, you hate techno, or like how can you say that? And I'm like, I like techno, like it's still Detroit. And I'm like, first of all, I'm a Detroiter through and through. I'm like, I'm not clowning Detroit. I'm just saying like these particular records. And it was like, yeah, but you can't say that. Like you're talking crap about like DJ Assault. I'm like, I didn't even mention Assault. It is about very specific songs and very specific. I named 4 specific songs.
Yeah.
I put up a screenshot of an article where DJ Godfather talked about this DJ making it first. And it's like, how far in the video did you get before you left a comment?
And see, people don't even want to wait for the 90 seconds.
And it threw me off. And I had to actually like cut off, like, you're not, get out of the comments. Leave it alone. Leave it where it is. Like, let the people argue.
And that's what's so, we're going to put a pin there and we're going to pick back up. But that's what I'm talking about. So this is a rich discussion already. So with that, school, where you go to for college?
So I started at Central Michigan University
Okay.
and got kicked out.
Ain't that something?
I went to Henry Ford.
Okay.
And then went back to Central. Got
Okay.
kicked out again. Went back to Henry Ford because I realized I was like one class away from associates. And then I finished at Wayne State.
That's what's up. Okay. I'm from a Henry Ford college guy too. Well,
Shout
now
out
it's
to
Henry
HF
Ford.
Listen,
Yeah,
Henry
but it
Ford
was community college.
HFCC when I was there.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it was top tier.
Yeah, it was. I learned so much. That's what's so tragic about right now. I learned so much about the Middle East by going there.
I did too, actually. I took an Arabic class while I was there for like just for funsies because I already had my language requirement with Spanish. I was like, let me just try it. I took Arabic 1. And of course, everyone in my class is Arabic and they're from different parts of like different countries. So it's like you really get like a good and healthy deep dive of like culture in there. And I actually appreciated that.
Yep.
And we got the holidays off, so it was even better.
Yes.
Even better.
That too. But you said kicked out a couple of times. What was you doing on campus?
So it sounds crazy, but I was one of those people that was always more involved than I was in class. Like
Okay.
I went to class, don't get me wrong. I'm just not a good tester at all whatsoever. So my first year I ended up on academic probation and I was just too committed. Like I had a scholarship that had requirements. And I'm like, I was very headstrong. So it's like, I'm going to be a journalist and I'm going to be on the student newspaper. But Central Student Newspaper was independent of the university. So it didn't count for my scholarship requirement of being in a club. So I still had to join another club. So now I have 2 clubs plus my scholarship requirement plus doing 18 to 20 credit hours each semester.
All right, 1 second. Let me say this because it's a lot of younger folks that work with me too. I know all of you freshmen want to take 25.
Do not recommend.
Take the minimal.
12.
Whatever the minimal is for your scholarship or whatever, try to get 12. If you got to go 16, go 16. But do not take 24 credit hours and think to yourself like, I was in high school for
that was the
hours.
mistake.
No, it doesn't translate like that.
Yep. And I thought it did. And again, first generation college student. I don't have anyone to like guide me for how to navigate
set up
this.
and
like my mom is doing the best that she could, but you can only read so much. And I ended the school year like a 1.3 GPA. So I got kicked out. And I was
that was the first time you ever seen anything like that.
First time in my life, actually.
Yeah.
And Renaissance did not prepare me to fail.
Yeah.
That was I will say that's one of the things that I didn't like about Renaissance back then. The pressure was so much. Like I watched kids cry over getting like a 27 or a 28 on their ACT. I had a 23 and thought I was great. And the city average at the time was like a 14. So we looked spectacular, but to us, it was like that pressure to always be better than and always do well. It did not teach me how to handle that. So when I got kicked out of college, that was the first time in my life where I actually felt what failure was. And I didn't know what to do. And I'm like, how am I going to tell my mama, as proud as she is, that I got kicked out of school? So I waited until after I had enrolled myself in Henry Ford and Central, thank God for them. The scholarship I had, you had to plan out your entire 4 years. You had to take a board with like Post-it notes and write out every class you're going to take of each semester so that you can graduate within the 4 years. So I took that board and HFC's like book to see which classes could transfer back to Central, sat down and made myself my sophomore year of college at HFC. And when I told her, it's like, hey, I got kicked out of Central. I was like, but I got in Henry Ford Community College. I got a job at Macy's Fairlane. Like, I'm good. Like, we here. And it kind of softened the blow. I still had to hear it, but it made it like, okay, we're fine. So during that downtime, I was in the city and it was like, okay, what am I going to do? Like I'm home. I don't know what to do. And I knew that I still wanted to write. And Henry Ford did have a student newspaper, which I went and I was like, oh God, they don't know journalism for real. Like this is like crazy the way like the fall off was. So I started a blog. This is blog era. So this is like 2008, 2009. I started a blog called The A-Side. And initially, it was just random rap stuff, right? Like, it's still very much like the MySpace era of things. So it's kind of like talking basic rap, entertainment news. Somehow, I tripped upon Detroit rap during this time. A lot of that had to do with Twitter, because Twitter back then was very different. You still had to fail well. Everyone's like 140 characters, all of that stuff. and tripped into Detroit rap and never got out of it, actually. Like
Wow.
it just like stumbled across it. And at the time, a friend of mine in college, his brother is Will Ketchum. And he was doing a site called MichiganHipHop.com with this guy named Mose. And I was like, oh, okay, like cool. And they let me write an article for them. And the person I interviewed was Mike Posner. And this is right at the tip of right before he got signed to J Records. It was right when Cooler Than Me was still going viral. I was familiar with Big Sean because of that record, because I saw like the random video. And like my freshman year of college while I was still at Central, because I had friends who were going down to Burn Rubber for his mixtape release. And I was like, oh, okay, like this will be cool. And then it was like right when I interviewed him is right when he kind of like
took off.
Yeah, like it was kind of crazy to watch that in real time. So then I just kind of like got dumped into Detroit rap and what was happening, because we saw at the time Sean had 0809. Sean hadn't dropped Big Sean. Yes, he did. He dropped it in 09, I think. I think he dropped Big Sean in 09. And I was still at home. And to kind of like be around, and it's like, yo, Finally Famous, like they're throwing these parties in this club. There's this guy who's like rapping. He's supposedly signed a kind. Like to watch the come up in real time was like crazy. And to watch it take off was even like crazier. It's like, yo, I had his mixtape. I reviewed it. I still to this day have that physical copy of that tape. And it's like, this is fun. And it changed my scope of like wanting to do national work to wanting to narrow down to like local work.
Okay. All right. Let me give some context for that one too, just from my hip hop journey. Cause, and shout out to Tawana. She actually got me performing for the first time in, I don't know, maybe about 10 years or something. A long time, right? But early on in that same connection, Mike Posner, I want to say, starts like some of his earliest recordings were at my studio in my basement.
Hilarious.
Also, like Sean and Shan and Early Mac. So Big Sean, Big Shan, Early Mac, all these guys were like all connected as friends, like in that movement for Finally Famous. I want to say around the time Shan did like a larger concert at MSU. And from that MSU concert and Big Sean continually winning the MC battle at 10, that was back when it was 102.7 still. 102.7 was hip hop at that point in time. That movement, and then it's like out of here. But that whole time, I remember what was still happening in the past and just kind of looking at all of them, and it's been humbling watching what that growth was, but also seeing what was stagnant, and just all the iterations, but also like Danny Brown. It's a lot of just hip hop that was happening in that era, which is kind of like somewhat my era. Shout out to Stretch. I mean, DZ will be coming on soon, but like DZ,
I don't think people understand
man.
how vast like hip hop really was. Like there's a reason Detroit does not have just one rap sound. Like I feel like people associate a sound with Detroit now, but like during that time you had kind of everybody. And for me it was like when I'm out in the clubs, because like club scene wasn't really my thing, so I found myself more at the rap shows and the rap battles, like all of that stuff. Spent a lot of time in the shelter, but in Oslo, RIP, because that was a great place. But it was like back then I'm in the mix. I became a real student of the culture at that point, because number one, it was all like really fresh and really new to me and like really exciting, right? So in the same time I'm learning about Slum Village, it's the same time I'm meeting Marv One and Quest McCody and talking to them about their like battle rap history. It's the same way I'm talking to like Rose Spit about like, hey, when you were DJ Friction, what were you doing? It's the same time I'm talking to PL about like, yo, you do a very good job of making sure you say you're from Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, and not saying you're from Detroit. Like, why is that? Like, I became so interested in the people and their stories and how things were happening. It's like, because during all of the time this whole thing is happening, like while Sean is taking off, while Mike Posner's taking off, like while all of these people are doing these things, you still had Doughboy's Cash Out in the cut, like all over media tech. So it's like Team Eastside was still out there. So it was just so much going on at one time. And then you still like the smaller groups, but they were still had like big fans overseas.
Oh, I mean,
like,
I want to say Clear Soul.
Coleman Young, Clear Soul Forces, Fresh Air, like all of these people doing all of these things. And it's like, it was a good time.
Yeah.
It was a good time.
And watching, that was definitely an iteration where I think definitely the baton is like kind of passing really from like what my class was to this new class, and the movement of what Detroit hip hop is and was. It was heavy. So that's a great era to witness, and then also witness like uh the like Sean goes into a whole nother stratosphere and into the discussion of like greatest rapper at the time. Like that's really what begins, because I mean what we saw play out really the Drake versus Kendrick Lamar discussion. At one point in time, the discussion was always like Big Sean,
Yeah, Big
J.
Sean,
Cole,
Drake, J. Cole, Kendrick, and Wale
Kendrick.
were like the
Yes, that was the discussion of what, in all kind of different styles, but all similar but different styles too. In this iteration of, I think, like hip hop that's not so gangster focused.
And I think that is when I said, like, that's why I put so much emphasis about the growing up that I had. So I remember when Sean was getting a lot of criticism from other Detroit rappers, which I didn't like. Like, I'm very, again, I'm anti-talking to Detroit to outsider business. But if you on a radio station in New York, why are you dogging Sean and saying he's not, you don't consider him a Detroit rapper, he's not Detroit? And it's like, I literally saw this man in Plan B passing out mixtapes and rapping. Like, what are you talking about? Like, he just made it and you didn't. But when that happened, it's like, to say he's not Detroit because what he raps about isn't Detroit, and it's like, to you. Like, you were a street person. He is not a street person. Like, he represents more, to me, more of what I grew up with, what more of me and my friends look like, more of what I'm familiar with than anything else. So it's a real, like Detroit is not a linear
It's
flat
not
place.
it's definitely not a monolith. Hence,
Yeah.
Detroit is different. And the Black experience here, being so Black, is going to be very vast. And I do think that there are so many kids that are a whole lot more along the lines of Sean. But also the it's so funny, and Khan did a story on us for this. The circles aren't the same. Hence, that's why I started Detroit is different, because this is such a cliquish town, and it can be a whole world going on in a space, and you just don't know about it, because the places that a Sean and Early Mac are going to rap are nothing like the places where like you're gonna see Team Eastside. The first time I saw Team Eastside is the 007 strip club, and I don't even think they were old enough to be in there. But that's
Probably
you're
not.
gonna see Team Eastside at spaces on the East Side that are like the 007. The guys that would throw those parties would sometimes do parties out in like a different it's a lot of those halls in Warren and stuff like that, but they're not gonna book a Posner to be at a show like that. And not saying that the worlds don't collide, but that world's not going to be so much at the shelter. One of the questions we asked is like, what do you think of when the Detroit hip hop and performing at a place? So like some people may see like their open mic experience be at the hip hop shop. That same group may see it at the Ebony Showcase. That other group may see it at the C Note Lounge. These are all spaces that may be performing in the same day, but whole different feel just based on who the promoters are, who the DJs that are going to be there, and what the feel and what the flow is going to be. It's just the culture is layered and it's very different.
It is. And it's like, I think about that and it's like, I kind of wish the kids had that again, because I don't think they do. It's like, it's more beefs, I feel like, now than anything. I feel like Detroit has so much potential to be great, but it just has to find its footing. I feel like we spend too much time, like, Detroit can be a very crab in a bucket mentality sometimes, and it's like, there's room for everybody. Like, you don't have to worry about the next person. You should be collaborating with the next person and celebrating the next person instead of trying to like pull them down.
I definitely applaud that, but just as a person that's promoted the music and shows and things, that's what becomes tough. And I don't necessarily think that this is just a challenge. Like hip hop promotion is difficult, as it, like, let's just say at the height of even music being well. Hence why I started doing a lot of blues shows, because the first thing is a lot of this nightlife and music performance is, tell my girl Erin that sings all the time, it's like, you're there because the music. The
Mhm.
money in the music business is in alcohol sales.
Mhm.
Alcohol by this generation is not being consumed at the same rate. So we're going to see a lot of close of a lot of clubs, probably strip clubs, definitely performance venues, places where you think to yourself, music usually would be here because people aren't consuming alcohol like they used to, you know, and that is even why, like, you may, if it's late and you just even trying to get something to eat, you're probably not even able to find that anymore. And that's not just a Detroit thing. This is like a national discussion that's happening that's not just very explicit. So with rap, you also heighten you need insurance, you need a lot of insurance for rap. You need security for rap. The crowd's probably not going to buy a lot of drinks. I mean, between a lot of the shows I've done at, well, now it's Tony V's, but Alvin's and the Bullfrog and the Shelter, and we've done shows a lot of places. I'm going to just tell you, the hip hop crowd is not going to drink a whole lot at all. If anything, they're going to drink a whole lot in the parking lot and then come in, and also the heightened danger. We haven't had a lot of incidents, but I definitely know at the Bullfrog, it was a couple shootings in the parking lot. So you have to like deal with the stress of problems like that. Like, so bringing it into a venue, I do think that it's an energy and a feel that can be uplifted and very cool. But as of recent, from the DJs I talked to, it's a lot of like out of town promoters that are setting up hip hop shows in different Detroit venues here. But like that organic promotion and building that feel, nah, it's very different. It's a different type of curated experience, really, from looking at back to like the writing thing, a person's stats to dictate, okay, they're trending up, this person's trending up. And some of these artists have never performed in their life because live performance is just not
It's
as accessible.
It's interesting here because it also plays into, like you said, some of these venues and just not wanting it there, just not wanting the audience there.
Yeah.
And their venues, some are notorious for allowing people to book them and then canceling on them at the last minute. Like, no, you can't do your show.
Mhm.
And it's like, it's crazy because it shouldn't be that way. Because it's like, where is it going to happen? I am waiting on somebody to open like a real life venue just for like rappers. Like, not even, because once upon a time, St. Andrews and the Shelter was that place. Now they're Live Nation. So, and even back then they were in bed with Live Nation, but they weren't a Live Nation
exclusive venue
like they are now.
And I think that Live Nation has purchased so many more of these venues in the decline in alcohol sales, as it's been a space that the St. Andrews halls across the nation are now getting purchased in many places, and hence the where you perform and how you perform. I think the L Club is more than likely the more welcoming space for a lot of the hip hop, but that also
that
may
has
have been
challenges
one of,
of its own.
I was gonna say this may have been another one of your stories.
The way, if you follow, like I follow Lauren, who manages L Club, and I've seen the fight that L Club has had with like local police. It's not even like the neighborhood. It's like, it's police. It's people like coming in to do random inspections when they don't need to. It's like, it's kind of weird to watch it in real time because it was shows that had to get canceled because of the random city inspection that they just decided to do. And it's like, what's the end game here? Like, are you just trying to take the club? Like, or is someone else trying to take it? Like, what does it look like? Because why are these problems just popping up? And it kind of reminded me of what happened with Paramita Sound when they were in the house still, and them randomly getting like complaints and all of this. I'm like, they've been doing this for years. Who's now complaining? Like, what's the point of complaining? And it's like, sometimes you wonder, like, who's actually like, where is the pressure coming from?
It happens like that with hip hop. So now I want to take that pin off the journalism thing and pick up that discussion, because both kind of run concurrent, where corporate interest is really impacting culture and artistry. Corporate interest impacting culture and artistry also leads to beautiful pieces of work and art like Marvin Gaye's What's Going On, but it also stifles and can redirect the flow of where it comes from too. So I'm taking that pin off and kind of picking back up to the writers in that form of, like you saying, like even being content and where things are at. As you are in this space, you have the blog experience and just wearing a lot of hats. It's like video, photography, graphic design, writing itself. What keeps you so grounded about having that passion to make sure that that story is told?
It's because my passion is just to tell the story. Like, I let go of journalism as like a career a long time ago, right? And some of that, so there's a rapper, Fat Father, who once upon a time I was in the studio with him, and I don't know, forgot how the conversation came up, but Fat has said, always remember that what you do isn't the job that you work for. Like, it's who you call it. It's what you're calling yourself. It's what you decide, it's how you decide to live, right? And so it's like I kind of took that and like have carried that throughout the years, because for me it's like I will always be a writer first and foremost. Like, if you ask me what I do by trade, this is what I do. What pays the bills and what's like where my insurance will come from, completely different thing. I'm okay with that. For me, I know that I will never compromise my integrity ever. I will always tell a story. Like, there is an Instagram page right now who made a post. It's pretty popular. It made a post based off of the reel that I made, but I know it won't credit me for it because of something that I have talked about the person who runs the page a couple of years ago. And it's like, I'm okay with never being featured on this page. I don't have to be. I don't support it. It's not my vibe. But I'm a person who's for the people. Like, I believe everyone has a story to tell, and I believe those are the stories that need to keep going, right? When I think about the stories that my mom told me or that my grandma managed to tell me before she died, it's like our stories of Black people are often like by word of mouth. They are tales, they are folklores. They're not written down, they're not preserved anywhere. For me, it's like if I can tell the story of the one woman who's making Kwanzaa kinaras like by hand, or tell about the girl who decided to open up a flower shop on 6 Mile, like those type of stories, like those people live somewhere. Like, people Google their name, that story pops up. It's like, I like that. I like the idea of adding to history, right? Shakespeare, and I want to say it's the 18th sonnet, but it's the end of the line is like, as long as men can breathe and eyes can see, so long lives this, and this gives life to thee. That is how I operate. Like, once I write the words, they are there forever. It becomes a part of history, becomes a part of somebody's research. Like, I have a tweet that ended up in a journalism, like academic journal, because of something I said. It's like, that's the thing that keeps me going. It's like, I'm always an advocate for the truth and for the people. So for me, that is what keeps me going. Like, that is what pushes it.
Okay. All right. So with that, right now, it's a lot happening in the city itself. What do you think right now, 2025, is the story of Detroit?
The story of Detroit is, I could tell you what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of Detroit's regression, and a lot of it has to do with who we select as a mayoral, like who's going to be our mayoral like person, like who are we going to pick to be the next mayor of Detroit. I am incredibly worried about that, and I'm also worried about the gubernatorial race once that actually happens, because those two are going to help like shape what the city looks like in the near, like, immediate future. I think those are the most, like, I feel like Detroit has potential for growth, but I am afraid if we choose the wrong candidate and we vote without doing our research, that we are going to end up stagnant and or regressing.
I would say that, first off, a lot of that storytelling that you speak of is why Detroit looks the way it looks. Mayor Duggan has expanded the communications department exponentially, and he's also welcomed in some of, I think, the most trusted voices in Detroit journalism to help in that communications office, like Rochelle Riley, Vicky Thomas, Georgette Johnson. I mean, even Kim Davis. Shout out to Kim. But them working within the administration obviously knows within relationships and how stories go. And also, I mean, the Detroit storytellers, where, you know, formerly like a Aaron Foley, a Eric Thomas, like these people with social capital and are definitely ears that people listen to, frame a lot of the Duggan administration where it looks a way that I don't necessarily think that some of the resurgence is the resurgence that really has happened, especially in neighborhoods like mine. That's one part of the story. And then two, just national media and local media, because race plays a role. And I've already seen national and some local media make some critiques of candidates that never were broached with our current executive.
That is why I'm actually concerned.
And all of this is story based. Not, and I'm not saying that you know, it's so tough because it's back to like the lens of like how you look at something. So like, let's just say a basketball game, right? It's a winner and loser. You can just write the story like this team won, right? But then when you read it, it could be like, you know, a valiant effort that you knew that this player was going to be an amazing player. And then even in loss, you can say, you know, dealing with some challenges that they didn't think, but coming back, you know, they're going to know how to face this struggle. I could write it where I just say, clearly they were unmatched and they didn't have what they needed. All of this is really framing how we're interpreting the reality, because the story and the reality start really playing out. Like for years, here's a classic one when people talk about public schools. If you ask a person, what do you think of public schools? Just based on being in a Black community, they're going to say they're bad. And I'm not saying they're good, but I'm going to say, as a, you know, former president of the Northwestern Alumni Association, it should lead with, when's the last time you've been inside a public school? What's your frame of reference for even knowing whether it's good or bad? What are you judging this by? Are we taking into account that all of these students dealt with dealing with COVID? I mean, technically that class that just graduated from high school last year was the first COVID class that was freshmen.
Yep.
Right. So that was freshmen. So now we're dealing with other iterations of like what we're looking at for like online school, the transient nature. Like so much of school deals with like housing and where people live and people move so much. Like it's so many layers to go into like, what do you think of school? That sometimes I don't even necessarily know if that's a fair question to ask per se.
Detroit is not.
People don't have the all of the information to make the assessment of what to say.
Nope. It's that, I think, is why I am like nervous. Like if I had to pinpoint anything, it's also the Detroit News and Free Press announced that they're ending their joint operating agreement.
I saw that. I saw that story.
I am concerned about the future of newspapers in Detroit. I feel like we are going to end up with one.
I could see that. And then the one that it's looking like is the News, which is more of a conservative leaning paper. So conservative in a lot of ways means that some of the stories that you see in the Detroit News in an all Black city, you would be thinking like, word, you know, because technically, you know, every investigation, every charge of Black people in leadership will definitely, I don't want to say definitely, but often make their way to headlines in the Detroit News that definitely frame a viewpoint of ineptitude.
The Detroit News has an audience.
Corruption.
Detroit.
And yes.
That's just what it is. Yes. It's not a paper for Detroit.
Yep.
And it definitely is a paper to shape in its skews. It's very intentionally put together.
Yeah.
And you can tell who the audience is. And you could tell, I think part of me, for me personally, like I've always been naturally drawn to the Detroit Free Press outside of my loyalty to them for help, like giving me a
your
start.
Career.
Yeah. Like they're the more people, they're the people paper.
Yep.
And it's like the people never make it. So that's why I am concerned about like the Detroit Free Press and what's actually about to happen. And I do feel like That's very, very important because those smaller outlets, like your Outlier Medias, your Model Ds, like
Bridge Detroit.
they're all about to become so important because
Yeah.
they're going to be the only way we know what's happening in the city. And it's like they don't have the audience because a lot of people don't know because people have to seek out that truth. And it's like, how are we going to get the information from them, like, out there? Like, they're the ones that we should be paying attention to. They're who we should be getting our news from because they're the ones who value the truth. And I don't think people are going to read that far.
And I'm going to say that that in this space, I feel the same way. In some ways, just back to that critical thinking, like, you know, I use a lot of sports analogies when I talk about things. I think that we may be down in certain ways, like maybe maybe three touchdowns, and there's a lot of people that may think we were down a field goal. So sometimes, you know, you gotta bottom out, as tough as it is, to really recognize the situation we're in. Because part of the other challenge that does exist, back to like the outside influence in a city inside Detroit. And I'm not necessarily saying that people that work outside Detroit, that live outside Detroit and work in Detroit cannot deliver a job the same. But it's certain nuances that you only get when you live here that you just won't get if you're not here, you know? And I'm not speaking just residency for working in the city, but I'm even talking about if you're a writer, if you're telling the stories of the city and you live here, that looks from a different lens. It feels different. You're connected different. So with that, what are the stories that you're looking to tell?
I think now that, like, I've done the rap thing and I don't think that's something that I want to continue anymore. I just feel like I've evolved past it. Like, it was a great era in my life. I think for me, like, the next stories that I'll probably get into are still more of the stories of, like, community, but in a very mom and pop way. Like, I want the people who your store has been open for 25 years, but only your neighborhood knows about it. And, like, those are the people. You may not have been able to make ends meet, but you still found a way to stay open. Like, those are the people I want to talk about. Those are the people who I feel like deserve their stories to be told in, like, archive somewhere. It's a lot deeper than just, like, the hot thing. And I think for me, because that's always been my push, like, I have always said, like, a lot of people, I don't have a lot of followers. Y'all don't see me outside all the time, but I always know all the right people. Like, people know who I am. And I'm okay with that part of it because my goal is never to be famous. My goal is never to, like, prove that I rub shoulders with somebody or prove that I've been in this, like, session and this, like, that's never it. So for me, it's definitely getting a little bit more grassroots. I think that's the thing. Now, the question is, where am I going to tell the story? That's where I'm always stuck at. It's like, I could just create a site tomorrow and just start. It's like, do I want to? I don't know. I haven't figured that part out yet.
Well, I love hearing that because Detroit is different. That's the root of it. And I'm glad that over time I have interviewed a lot of people that hold very influential positions in culture, in politics, in business, and so forth and so on. But it also is just the fact that it's like, yo, everyday folks. I want to get that story because I don't know what's going to happen with these archives, but I feel like as it gathers, and I would love to see what's going to happen even with your archives as you start. And I'm very interested in that. I can tell you this just as a piece of advice that I wish I would have started. As you tell those stories, I say start with your Detroit map and start mapping them because I really want to map Detroit's difference, but it's like damn near 500 episodes.
I'm gonna have to that's a lot of work.
Somebody to help with like a dissertation worth of, like, okay, because I think that if you start with that map, that
would be cool though.
Very cool.
You should do that.
Yeah,
you should just make it a hobby.
Yeah,
like a puzzle. Just do one piece a day.
I don't know about that. I'm gonna get a team to help. Alex may be on that team, but I'm gonna get a team to help because I think it'll be great to, like, really connect to some of the people's stories and snippets to just be like, oh, they live there, they live there, they live there. That'll be something really cool.
Actually, you should do that.
All right. So with that, as we get to a close, classic Detroit is different questions.
Okay.
Which I already know one of the answers, but very first car, year, make, and model.
very first car was a 2001 PT Cruiser. I think it was 2001.
man.
PT Cruiser, and it was gold.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to say it's 2001. It was old, but I loved it.
Okay. When did you get it, and where was the first place you went when you got it?
I actually got it off of like one of my mom's friends, like who his daughter didn't need it anymore, and I bought it, and I was like, okay, great. Like it was like maybe like $1,000. I don't remember.
Okay.
But I think the first place I went was Fairlane, which is only because I was working.
Oh,
Literally
man.
drove straight to work.
Drove straight to work.
Straight to work.
Ain't that something?
It is.
All right. And 1 second, you worked at Fairlane. I get so many Northland stories. Give me some Fairlane stories. We don't talk about Fairlane enough, and we definitely know that Fairlane is another one of those places that has a very
unique,
layered relationship with the Black Detroit, but still.
Oh my God, my mom did not go step foot into Fairlane until I started working there. She refused because of
murder at the Lord and Taylor.
She's boomer Detroiter through and through. Like I'm Detroit, she's like Detroit. And she would not, like, she refused. She did not go to Dearborn for a very long time, actually. What do you need? There's a person pooped in a fitting room. Like Fairlane was crazy. Like you saw the people pooping in a fitting room. I've been in a mall twice when it's been locked down because someone was shooting in a mall because they got their yay snatched at the jewelry store there. I've run into the great people there. Like, for a lot of people don't know, but when people come into the city, the mall that they were taking people to was Fairlane at one point. So you had like 50 Cent come through there, Elton John come through there, Master P and Romeo, Leon, like so many different people I met because I worked in men's polo. So I used to always see like people all the time. And it was kind of like crazy a little bit because I never, like, of all the places, I never thought they would drive them there, but it's the closest mall to like the airport, and so it made sense there. But Fairlane taught me, if it taught me anything, there's one thing I could take from Fairlane, it is that Black people are not the people who steal all the time. That is the one thing I will say. Those are not the people that I needed to watch all the time when it came to theft.
Hey, and then let me let many people know about this. Yeah, Winona Ryder. We know
it was, yeah.
People will take. But other than that, I'm gonna just say also, don't be losing your job because a person's stealing some chips or a T-shirt.
Never. And I don't believe in that.
Lose your life either.
I don't believe in that. I believe in doing the job that pays me, and that's it. That's it.
Exactly. Let them wear that shirt that got the ink all over it.
Have fun at it. Have fun with it.
Which I know is like, if you're young, you're like, what are you talking about? Okay, so if you're younger, in these places, malls, people would buy clothing oftentimes. Macy's was one of those places across the nation. You probably may go to Macy's online, right? And if you go in the store and you'd steal something, it would be these tags, these magnetic tags that the different people that worked at the store, the retailers, used to have to take off. And if not, then the ink would splash all over the clothing.
And a lot of people don't think there's really ink in there. There is. It's blue, and it's a pain in the ass if it gets on your hands, for real. It sucks. But we actually busted up. It was a security guard who had a whole booster ring in Macy's. They had been watching him for months, and he got hit with a felony.
And let me explain that to people. Like, so if you listen to like, especially like old New York rap, it's a fandom of kids into that. So you hear about like people out here boosting. Boosting is stealing clothing and selling that stolen clothing into the community. So sometimes you just be chilling in the barbershop and somebody come in and they be like, yo, straight up, I got an Averex 200. What you want? That is a person that is hopefully boosted, but it could also be knockoff merchandise too. That's the dice you roll sometimes.
Some days you know, some days you don't. But yeah, that was probably the craziest thing that happened because he got caught by his girlfriend who worked in shoes because she told on him because he had got married to his baby mama.
I was gonna say it's probably
it was
like a Jerry Springer episode ish.
It was
stuff.
I always wonder what happened to him. I should look him up. So I'm pretty sure he got hit with a felony.
Ain't that something? He probably now that I'm sure that when he shares the podcast story of that, people will watch.
Yeah, Fairlane was a lot. It taught me a lot, and I still talk to people from. Actually, my best friend is one of my best friends is one of the people I met while I was working there.
Okay,
so it gave me a lot, and even when I had my baby, I still took my baby up to Macy's so she could see all the old people who I knew then. But yeah,
okay. All right. So, second question. You're the DJ at the end of the fireworks. Woodward and Jefferson. You get to play 2 songs. What songs you playing?
Do they have to be Detroit songs or just songs in general?
You the DJ.
Oh, that's hard. The end of the fireworks.
Yep.
So you're sending people home.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough question because my mind goes to a lot of what I listen to. But if I'm trying to see, I don't want nobody to start shooting. That's the problem. Because most of what I listen to, somebody's going to start shooting for sure. Because it could be like Chips on Pistons.
Okay. I'm with that.
Or
Race 5'9".
yeah.
Blade.
Or like
Rest in peace.
Lose My Mind by Jeezy.
Okay.
And like that's a crazy song to go out on, but that's like when the night don't end and you're trying to find like what's happening next. It would be that. Probably those two.
Jeezy, almost an honorary Detroiter.
Basically. Basically.
Yeah, he coming with the symphony orchestra for Thug Motivation 101. It's like, they need that ticket. They need that ticket. All right. Last question.
Mm-hmm.
You could rename Woodward after one Detroiter. Who would it be and why?
If I could rename Woodward after one Detroiter, you know what? It's tough because my first thought was to rename it after Coleman A. Young. My second thought is to rename it after Joe Louis. But I would probably say Joe Louis just because they got rid of the arena and that still bothers me. And I feel like he needs to be like, it needs to be something else. Like he needs something else.
I got you.
So
I got you.
It would probably be that.
There we go. The Brown Bomber.
Yeah.
You're the first person to uplift the Brown
It
Bomber.
would probably be. That's what it would probably be. Stuff like a Motown artist is too stereotypical. So I would probably say, yeah.
I'm with it.
Joe Louis.
Love it. Thank you so much. And I definitely have a good feeling that something cultural, something creative going to happen from this combination.
This is fun. This is great.
Definitely. As always, peace.
Detroit, Detroit, Detroit is different. Detroit is